Um, so hello and thank you for attending our information session covering counseling psychology graduate programs in the Faculty of Education. Oki, and welcome to the University of Lethbridge. Our university's Blackfoot name is Aniskum, meaning sacred buffalo stone. The university is located in traditional Blackfoot Confederacy territory. We honor the Blackfoot people and their traditional ways of knowing and caring for this land, as well as all Aboriginal peoples who have helped shape and continue to strengthen our university community. A few housekeeping items before we begin. We'll hold all questions until the question and answer period at the end. Please write your question in the Q&A section. Okay, so not in the chat, but in the Q&A section. We're not going to be reviewing questions in the chat. So please put any questions in the Q&A section, and it'll be read aloud by one of us. So similar questions will be combined, and if the question is very specific to your situation, Courtney will attempt to provide you with a written response in the Q&A, or she'll ask you to submit. She'll give you a link to a contact form that you can submit your specific question to, that we can respond to when we have more time. You can also send us a note in the contact form that she's going to provide within the presentation or within the chat. Okay, so to get things rolling, let's look at what we're going to cover today. So we're going to provide an overview of the graduate counseling programs that we offer within the Faculty of Education. We will discuss the features of our programs to help you decide if they meet your needs. We will review the admission requirements in order that you can determine if you're ready to start your application. We will examine the components that you need to include within your application. We will look at potential career paths upon completion of our counseling programs, and as I mentioned, we'll wrap up with a question and answer period. So within the Faculty of Education, we offer two different counseling graduate level programs. So that is a Master of Education with a major in Counseling Psychology and the Master of Counseling program. So let's take a look at some of the features of these programs to help you decide if they're suitable for you. So first, a huge strength of both of our programs is our cohort model. So students are admitted to a cohort and proceed according to the schedule with their peers. You're completing courses together at the same time. Students in each cohort become a support network for each other, and this network lasts far beyond the timelines of the program. It's really amazing to see those connections and how they last. Secondly, our programs are course-based. The coursework is aligned with the needs of the field and all work towards competencies required by professional bodies. Courses are taught by qualified faculty and instructors with expertise in the area. A third feature that both programs share is that they offer a flexible location for practicum. So students do arrange their own practicum, providing you with a say in your training. The practicum can be completed across Canada, pending approval of the supervisor and the agency. There is criteria related to that outlined within our Counseling Psychology Practicum Handbook, and that can be found on our current student webpage. Students are well oriented before commencing a search for placement. So with the help of the program specialist and the clinical coordinator, students receive lists of approved sites and supervisors to assist in their search. So you are supported throughout that process. It is worth noting that placements may require a vulnerable sector check or similar additional requirements beyond what's actually needed by the university for the practicum. And it also is worth noting that practicum courses include both the placement at the agency and a seminar component. And the seminar component typically involves 4 days of virtual meetings with your instructor and peers for each of the practicum courses. A fourth feature for both programs is that the Master of Ed Counseling Psychology and the Master of Counseling programs both align with certification. So specifically, both programs meet the graduate requirements for Canadian Certified Counselor with the Canadian Counseling and Psychotherapy Association and Alberta Registered Psychologist with the College of Alberta Psychologists, or CAP. And as I'll mention later in the session, we're proud that both of our programs meet the approved programs pathway with the College of Alberta Psychologists. So we are a fast track program. So let's dig into the specific programs now. So first, let's talk about the MEd Counseling Psychology program. So the main distinguishing feature of this program is that the first year is offered on campus. The program is 2 years in duration, resulting in an intense program, and it's designed for students who are fully immersed in their studies. So you cannot work while you're completing this program. The program consists of three components: the coursework that's completed in the first year, the practicum placements in the second year, and in the final terms of program, a culminating activity. So as you can see, the first year program is quite intense with the number of courses that you complete. Courses are in person on campus and are normally offered during the day. Um, However, as the practicum location is flexible, the second year affords you the opportunity to complete your practicum in a location of your choosing. So you do not need to be in Lethbridge for the second year program. The culminating activity options within the MEd Counseling Psychology program are quite unique in that you have the option between a thesis, a project, or a capstone. And many students do opt for the capstone as it's the fastest pathway to program completion. However, if you intend to pursue a PhD in the area of counseling psychology, a thesis is highly recommended as programs are very competitive. Completing a project or thesis does typically extend your program, and it does add to the cost of program. One thing that sets us apart from many other U of L graduate programs is that due to the course-based nature of our program, we do not require applicants to identify a potential supervisor for your thesis or project at the time of application. So an orientation to all of the culminating activity options is held upon starting your program, and this orientation will shed light on each option. If you decide that you would like to pursue the project or thesis option, you'd wait until your research course is completed before reaching out to faculty members to potentially act as your supervisor. So those are the main elements of the Master of Education Counseling Psychology program. Next, let's take a look at the Master of Counseling. So this program is designed for working professionals. So it's intended to help you navigate the challenges of balancing both a master's program and your career at the same time. Our blend of online coursework and face-to-face components makes this feasible. So courses are spread out to allow you to continue working, and the program is completed in 3 years. So like the MEd, the Master of Counseling program is consisting of three components. So the coursework, a practicum placement, and a culminating activity. Relative to the coursework though, your summer term consists of online work starting in May, and wraps up. So May and June, you're online learning, and then it wraps up with an intensive summer institute on campus in Lethbridge for 2 weeks in July. Worth noting that accommodation options are available on campus for students attending Summer Institute. So for the Master of Counseling program in the fall term, so September to December, and the winter term, January to April, courses are completed online in an asynchronous manner. However, you do proceed through the courses together with your peers in your cohort. So online components could include discussion forum participation, group work, individual assignments, self-study, video review as just a few instances of what instructors may assign. And you're expected to be consistently engaging with your peers and instructor throughout each week of the course. And typically students are active every day within the course. As mentioned in the program features, the practicum location is flexible and can be completed at a distance. It's important to know that students in the Master of Counseling program, while it is designed for working professionals, in your final year, while you're completing your practicum, you should commit to approximately 2.5 to 3 days per week minimum dedicated to your practicum placement. We recommend that students take a leave of absence from work or significantly reduce their work hours during this time. So as we mentioned, in addition to the placement at the agency, the practicum seminar consists of several days of online synchronous learning over and above the practicum time at the agencies. So, and in the Master of Counseling program, you'll wrap up with a culminating activity. And in this program, it's a professional portfolio. And that involves a collection of reflective tasks and a comprehensive professional development plan. So if we're to compare the programs side by side, just to give you a little better sense of how they look, a reminder that the MEd Counseling Psychology program is on campus in the first year and is a 2-year program. And this program offers a thesis route for those intending to pursue a PhD. The total cost of this program is about $16,500 based on the 2025 fee schedule. international students, please refer to the fee schedule for your fees. The next cohort will be admitted to the summer 2026 term with courses starting in July 2026. Okay, and as mentioned, the Master of Counseling program is designed for working professionals and is a blended delivery program completed over 3 years. The cost of the Master of Counseling program is about $27,500. Again, international students, please refer to the fee schedule. And the next cohort will start in May of 2026. So hopefully that provided you with sufficient insights to help you determine which program is the best fit for you. And next we'll look at admission requirements. Um, it is worth noting that the counseling programs are very competitive. So we do recommend that you only submit your application once you're confident you have at least the minimum requirements. And if you're in doubt, you can seek feedback from our office. We receive approximately 400 applications for 40 to 50 seats, so simply meeting the minimum requirements is not sufficient for entry to program. And we'll talk in a bit about what a competitive application will look like. But first, let's look at the minimum requirements relative to admission to our graduate programs. So you will need to complete a baccalaureate or a 4-year undergraduate degree. So unfortunately, a 3-year degree does not suffice. You can reach out to admissions if you have questions about that situation. Successful applicants have come from a variety of backgrounds, but usually a BA Psych or a BSc Psych is the most typical. But we've also had individuals from Bachelor of Addictions Counseling, Bachelor of Social Work, nursing, management, BEd are some other examples. Okay, and relative to a grade point average, a minimum of 3.0 is required, and that's calculated on the terms containing the last 20 courses which have a grade other than pass, fail, or credit. So if you want to determine your GPA, simply start with your most recent term and count your courses back until you reach the term containing the 20th course, and be sure to include all courses completed within that term. So you may actually end up with greater than 20 courses being utilized within your GPA calculation. Okay, another really important feature is that we do require 2 years of relevant experience. Okay, so it has to be relevant experience. And the best kind of experience is that where you're helping to facilitate change in others, or where you're trying to help people deal with their emotions so that you can determine if you are comfortable dealing with those human emotions. And it can be work or volunteer experience. Some examples of suitable experience include hotline or crisis line work, any actual helping or counseling experience, working at addiction centers, volunteering with a sexual assault center, peer support work, or it could include group home, one-on-one respite care, youth care, teaching, coaching, things of that nature. So one thing to consider is that it's also important to ensure that your experience affords you the ability to provide references who are well situated to comment on your potential success in the field. And that means it's desirable to have supervisors or employers who are in the field of counseling psychology so they can speak to your likely success in this particular field within the reference. Okay, so keep that in mind. You know, what kind of volunteer work am I going to do that's going to get me a good reference, or that gives me a reference that includes somebody from the field who can speak to my potential success within the field of counseling. Part-time experience counts, and it's simply prorated. So for instance, if you worked half-time for 4 years, you would have the equivalent of 2 years of full-time. Okay, as well, we require a breadth of undergraduate courses in psychology. In our admission section, we do recommend specific courses, and those include human development, learning, personality, psychological disorders, and counseling skills. And we are looking for a breadth of undergraduate psychology courses, which will assist you going into your master's program. So it is a graduate program in a psychological field, and so having a good number of psychology courses is going to help you prepare. Successful applicants typically have at least 16 courses in psychology. Okay, and then if it's appropriate, English language proficiency will be required. And as I mentioned, here's Here's some statistics about recent admissions, which will help you determine if you're competitive in your application. So for the MEd Counseling Psychology program, the average GPA is 3.88. So again, the minimum 3.0 is not going to be sufficient to get you into program. The average work experience is 3 years. The average number of undergraduate psychology courses completed is 20. So as you can see, it's a very competitive program to gain access to. For the Master of Counseling program, the average GPA is 3.79. The average work experience is more than 7 years, and the average number of undergraduate psychology courses completed is 16. So once you've determined whether your application will be competitive, you can start to pull together the components required for your application. And once you have the following elements ready to upload or include within your application, the process does actually take a few minutes and is quite straightforward. The entire application is completed entirely online, so that's a nice situation. First of all, transcripts are required for every post-secondary institution you've attended, even if it was just for one course, and even if it shows as a transfer credit on another institution, you still need to have the original transcript uploaded. So only unofficial transcripts are required at the time of application, and they must be uploaded within your application. Like I said, be sure to note every single one of the institutions you've attended within your educational background section and upload transcripts for each. Official transcripts will only be required if you're admitted to the program. Okay. Additionally, 3 referees are required. So you will simply enter the name and email address of the individuals who have agreed to act as a referee for you. Please be sure to ask your referees to act in this capacity in advance so that they're aware. You do not request a letter from them. Instead, when you enter their information in the application, they will be sent an email and they will enter their evaluation directly within our online system. So be sure within the application to click the Submit Recommendation Request button so that they receive the email to complete the form. And you can track the status of your references. So when you log into the CollegeNet application system, you see the status and you can send a reminder to them from within the system. And you can also actually change your reference if the individual has not commenced the process. If they have commenced the process, then you're unable to change it without intervention from CollegeNet. So do remember that references need to submit by the application deadline, so the December 1st deadline. So do provide them with plenty of notice so that they can have everything completed by the application deadline. And some faculty members will receive upwards of 50 requests for references, so give them plenty of time to respond accordingly. We do receive many inquiries regarding what's the best mix of referees to use. A minimum of 2 professional references should be used. However, all 3 can be professional references if, for instance, you've been out of school for a long time and it's difficult to obtain an academic reference. As I mentioned previously, it's important to ensure that your experience affords you the ability to provide references who are well situated to comment on your potential success in the field. So it's good to have supervisors who are in the field of counseling psychology so they can speak to your likely success in this field. Okay, you'll also need to upload a letter of intent. This should clearly outline your interest in the program and your intended career outcome. 1 to 2 pages is sufficient. Remember, we get 400 applications, so the reviewing committee does not want to be reviewing a 10-page LOI. A couple of pages is sufficient. There is no specific formatting or word count required, so there's no restrictions on it. It is up to you in terms of how you want to format it. And in addition, you'll include a curriculum vitae or CV as part of your application. And a CV is essentially a resume that lists publications. Okay. If required, you'll provide documentations of your English language proficiency test scores. So that's talking about the programs, the admission requirements, the application process. We're going to switch topics now and discuss the potential career paths for you once you've successfully completed your master's degree. So our programs prepare you for Canadian Certified Counselor designation with the Canadian Counselling and Psychotherapy Association, or registered psychologist with the College of Alberta Psychologists. Okay, so the first pathway is Canadian Certified Counselor, sometimes called a professional counselor. And this is through the Canadian Counselling and Psychotherapy Association, or CCPA. And it's a national body certifying counselors, and it is considered the minimum standard for the profession. So the CCPA only reviews your graduate coursework, and our programs fulfill the requirements for CCPA certification. So that's important to remember. CCPA only looks at your graduate requirements. Within some provinces, there are also counselor certifying bodies, and they align with the CCPA. So, for instance, the BC Association of Clinical Counselors, or BCACC. Another example is the College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario, or the CRPO. And applicants should be aware of the specific requirement for the body you intend to certify with, as they can differ from province to province. And the onus is on students to check the requirements for the province in which they intend to practice. Hey, so the second career path our programs prepare you for is registered psychologist in the province of Alberta. So, like I said, within Alberta, this is with the College of Alberta Psychologists, or CAP is their acronym. So CAP looks at your graduate coursework, but there are also other additional requirements. The graduate coursework completed in the programs meets the graduate requirements for CAP. Okay, but if you intend to pursue uh, College of Alberta Psychologists, there are additional requirements. So at the undergraduate level, there's 12 undergraduate courses in psychology. Again, remember, this is for CAP. This is not for entrance to program. This is if you intend to pursue registered psychologist in Alberta. Um, so in order for these courses to be considered, the title must include psychology. The instructor must have a graduate degree in psychology, and the course must be intended to prepare students to engage in the practice of psychology. So for instance, courses in programs preparing you to be a child and youth counselor would not have psychology in the title and would have been intended to train you as a child and youth counselor, not a psychologist. So those courses would not normally count relative to meeting CAP criteria for evaluating academic credentials. Okay, and then additionally, some courses covering specific substantive content areas are also required for College of Alberta psychologists. So this includes the social basis of behavior, psychology of the individual, cognitive affective basis of behavior, which is actually covered in our graduate program, that one. And then biological basis of behavior I list last, because a note for this one area, this one substantive area, that CAP will allow one course taught by somebody with a neuroscience background, and the title can have neuroscience in it. So they will allow an exception for those psychology situations for that one biological basis of behavior course, and that's it. Um, so if you have the required undergraduate courses, you are supervised in your practicum by a registered psychologist within your grad program, and if you've completed your MEd counseling psychology or your Master of Counseling degree, then you're ready to apply for your provisional psychologist status with CAP. Okay, so after you have your graduate degree, there's still additional requirements for registered psychologists. So again, following completion of your master's degree, you would also require additional hours of supervised training as a provisional psychologist. And that's currently, they've just changed the hours, so it's now 2,000 hours, with 400 hours being in the practice of assessment. Note that your practicum in program, so within your master's program, does not count toward these hours. They're totally separate. So as you cannot begin your provisionally supervised hours until after you have your Alberta provisional psychologist status, which you can't have until after you've completed your graduate degree. Additionally, you'll complete an examination for professional practice in psychology. So that's the EPPP, and a law and ethics for Alberta psychologists, or a LEAP. Is the acronym for that. So in Alberta, only once all of those elements have been approved by CAP are you eligible to become a registered psychologist. And in other provinces, a PhD level degree is required to meet registered psychologist requirements. So again, in Alberta, you don't need a PhD, but there's a whole lot of other requirements that are needing to be met. In other provinces, you do require a PhD. So a little bit more about the College of Alberta Psychologists relative to our programs. So both our MEd Counseling Psychology program and Master of Counseling program are approved program pathways with the College of Alberta Psychologists, meaning you have seamless entry into provisional psychologist status. After being admitted, we'll review your situation and determine if you've met all of the undergraduate requirements for the approved programs pathway. So, i.e., do you have the 12 psychology courses and the substantive content areas covered? If so, you'll be fast-tracked for provisional status. Additionally, your practicum supervisor in program must be a registered psychologist to go the approved programs pathway. If you have not met these additional requirements for CAP, it's not a problem. You would simply complete the necessary elements that are lacking before we're able to recommend you to CAP. Okay, you may opt to stick with the pathway of Canadian Certified Counselor with the CCPA and never pursue registered psychologist. The choice is yours. However, the majority of our graduates in Alberta go on to registered psychologist. In fact, almost all of our Alberta graduates go on to registered psychologist. And we do recommend that if you intend to take this pathway, that you do it as quickly as possible upon completing your graduate degree. And this will help ensure that the requirements haven't changed and allow you the best opportunity to pass the intensive exams. So coming directly from your graduate program. So it is important to keep in mind if you're doing one of these programs, you need to continue to, to plan to do those 2,000 supervised hours after you complete your degree. So, prepare that extra, be prepared for that extra length of time to do that supervised hours, which usually takes about a year. Okay, and just a reminder that the 2026 intakes for the MEd Counseling Psychology and the Master of Counseling program do meet the requirements for the College of Alberta Psychologists. Okay, I'm just going to show a slide here, just a reminder of the differences between the programs in case you've gotten confused, because we have thrown a lot of acronyms at you in this session. So just a reminder of which program is which and what they look like. So if you have all of the required pieces for your application in place, you are ready to submit your application, and applications are being received now. It is worth noting that you can commence your application and go back to finish it at a later date. We will send you reminders if it's open and we haven't seen any action on the account for a while. So applications may be submitted up to and including December 1st. References are also due by December 1st, so we do recommend commencing at least several weeks before the deadline to provide sufficient time for the referees. So, 2-3 weeks minimum to get those references submitted before the December 1st deadline. Okay, and submitting your application earlier is better to make sure that you can get everything in place, and it allows us to follow up with you in case there are any questions. So if admissions has any questions or we need to follow up, then we can make sure that we've reached out to you and gotten the information that we need before the admissions committee evaluates, because they do evaluate shortly after the December 1st application deadline. So we want you to have a full and complete application before it's reviewed by the committee. As I mentioned, we do have the contact form here, so you can submit any inquiries to us through that contact form. That's done through our CRM, so it helps us to facilitate answering your questions. And then I've got a number of other websites that are available here for you, including CAP and CCPA. So just going to make a brief pause here and we'll start the Q&A session. I just need to get the Q&A going again. Okay, so feel free to submit your questions. Courtney, I don't have the chat open, so hopefully people haven't been putting things in the chat, but I see that there's a couple of questions here. So is there any good examples for the CV? Again, that's a really personal question, because people like to use their own creativity when it comes to a CV. So it really is demonstrating how you can pull your information together in a vibrant capacity. Um, Okay, so I intend to practice as a counselor in British Columbia. Do your counseling programs meet the needs of BCACC? So I did touch on this a little bit. So we do have many of our students go on to practice as an RCC or Registered Certified Counselor in BC. And the BC Association of Clinical Counselors is the professional body that represents RCCs. You would be required to complete a group therapy course, which is offered within our Master of Counseling program as an elective, and a family systems therapy course, which our graduates have had no issues in completing outside of their graduate program. BCACC also is looking at or may have already added an Indigenous cultural safety training course to their requirements. Um, so keep in mind our programs are designed to meet the needs specifically of the CCPA on a national basis and CAP in Alberta. So again, if you intend to go if you intend to pursue in another province, you need to be to look into the requirements of that program. And you will cover that content within the ethics course in the program as well. Okay, another question here. So what are the required courses for admission? We're looking for a breadth of courses in counseling psychology or educational psychology. Particular emphasis is paid to courses in human development, learning, personality, psychological disorders, and counseling and or interpersonal skills. There are no specific prereq courses, so we don't say you need, Psych 2006 from U of L. There's nothing like that, but students should present a breadth across these topics. And again, due to the volume of applications received, we're unable to review transcripts in advance of your application. So we just simply don't have the time and capacity to review your transcripts. To tell you that's part of the application process, the review process, and is part of the determination of the outcome of your application review. Good question here. Can I apply to both programs? So the U of L does allow, or only allows individuals to apply to one program in a specific term. And because they're both starting in the summer term, you'll have to think carefully about which program is best suited to your needs before you make the determination to apply. Okay. What kind of funding is available for students? So there's two main components to funding. So the first is scholarships. And we have a variety of entrance awards. We also have ULGRA, so University of Lethbridge Graduate Research Award, that's new. So we've received some new funding for that. Last year, across our Faculty of Education graduate programs, we distributed about $180,000. And students can also apply for a graduate assistantship, and this contributes to your research background in that you'd provide a faculty member with assistance in their research for several hours per week, and the remuneration is $3,700 approximately per term for 8 hours of work a week, and there's also a half-time version of that, so you work 4 hours a week for half of the remuneration. What kind of experience counts? So we do cover this, but I'll talk about it again. So experience can be work or volunteer. It can be full-time or part-time. So a reminder to simply prorate it in terms of counting up to the 2 years that we require. So the admissions committee is looking for counseling related experience where you're facilitating change in others or where you're trying to help people deal with their emotions. So particularly when they're vulnerable, so that you can determine if you are uncomfortable dealing with those human emotions. So examples, hotline or crisis line work, counseling experience, addiction centers, sexual assault center, peer support work, group home, one-on-one respite care, youth care, teaching, coaching are all great examples. And if you don't think you have enough relevant experience, we highly recommend Distress Lines. They provide great training, and they are absolutely going to give you some valuable insight into whether or not it's a suitable field for you. Are you able to help people deal with their emotions while they're experiencing trauma and are at a vulnerable state? Um, Okay, so question here about I'm currently completing my BA Psych, will be done in April. Can I apply now? So absolutely. If you've met the other admission requirements, such as the 2 years of experience, then you can go ahead and apply. So if you were offered admission, it would be conditional subject to the successful completion of your degree. in April. Another question about relevant experience. So is my research experience considered as relevant experience? So it's unlikely that your experience acting as an RA was counseling related. So for instance, if you're in a lab, you know, doing something with rats, for instance, that it's great that you get that experience, to help a faculty member's research long work in their lab, but you're not facilitating change in others. So it's like unlikely to be relevant. There are some cases where that might be the case, but typically speaking, RA work is not suitable experience. Okay, there's a question here about when can I expect to hear about my application? So admission decisions. So unfortunately, we aren't able to provide advice on that until about the middle of February. That is the latest that we will be able to let you know, but it is unlikely that we will let you know in advance of that, just because we do have interviews and whatnot, and it does take time for that process to occur.